Oops, remove that one and bring that one. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Solutions with Chanti, the new look Solutions with Chanti, broadcasting from the heart of the Ankara field. And I am so grateful to have each and every one of you here this evening, or morning, or afternoon. And of course, I could not think of having a better first guest than the awesome, beautiful Beverli Rhodes. And everything is on 11 when I said that. The number
Wow.
of people watching is 11 and the time was 1:11. So
Wow.
that
That's
was
11,
such a
11.
cool,
Yay. Yay.
yeah, such a cool God wink. So Beverli, welcome and thank you so much for being the very first guest, but also not as a once-off series
Mm.
for as long as we can possibly manage on whatever topics we're going to possibly be speaking about over the next few months, years, whatever. But before we go ahead, I want to just say welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys joining us with our very first of our spiritual forensic series. And yeah, I think before we even go ahead, Beverli, you and I were chatting about why we're actually doing this show.
Mm.
I mean, if you guys have been watching the little intro videos on the Ankara field, and please do, it's really, it's amazing when we understand what we're doing. It's not just a new show, it's done with deep consciousness that we've created this channel and redone it. It's really coming from a very, very deep place of awareness and consciousness. So watch the videos. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff over the next few years. Okay.
There we go. We've been
How is
told it's years. Okay, that's fine.
okay? There we go. So,
Yeah,
and,
spirit has spoken.
obviously, yeah, and what we're doing here in this particular series is literally reclaiming our spiritual gifts. Like in the little videos you've probably seen, we reclaiming our symbols,
Yeah.
right? Because we know that the dark ones have inverted everything. So exactly, there we go. I love it. Thank you. There we go. Look,
There's yours. Yes,
yeah,
this
I've
is
got
it.
two actually.
This one was hand carved from a single block of wood by a very,
Yeah,
very lovely friend who's a
yeah,
Viking. So thank you, Viking.
that's amazing. Yeah, mine too. Actually, my brother made me this one from I think it's the jarrahwood tree in
Oh,
Australia. And
beautiful.
then this one comes from my nephew here, and it's made from one of the local trees in Eisner.
Oh,
So
oh, fantastic. Wow.
very beautiful. So we've all got wooden carved ankhs.
We
Guys,
do. Yes.
the ankh is certainly not a symbol that is evil, I assure you. It
No.
is who you are. It's
Yes.
the resonance of the perfection, the perfect human frequency is contained within the ankh. So we're going to be talking more about that. Anyway, the reason for our series is because we're reclaiming our spiritual gifts as well. There's nothing evil about spiritual gifts, nothing bad, nothing to be ashamed of, nothing wrong. And I say that from my point of view because I was one of those kids who was told I was evil and bad. And thank God I never believed it. Thank
Yeah.
God for that. I just like,
Mm.
I'm stubborn. That's the thing. And we really, at a time like this, it's about reclaiming and viewing the truth, shedding light on the truth. And, it doesn't make anyone superior or inferior. There are certain people who are brilliant at maths. There are certain people who are gifted at sports, at
Mm.
singing, at whatever. And certain people are gifted in spiritual acuity as well. So, just like a singer will use their voice, just like a mathematician will use his brain or her brain, we too will use our gifts to shed light on that which has been hidden and lied to. So, we're going to be enjoying this series for the next few weeks. But anyway, now over to you. Enough of my babbling.
It's not babbling, it's necessary, especially now with all the light that's happening. There's no escape for the dark ones. And I really appreciate you saying about, the school situation, because for me, when I was at school, because I was deemed as weird, the weird kid, there was a big tree out at the quad on the other side of the playing fields, and the kids tied me to the tree and said they were going to burn me as a whatever. They thought, yeah, it was very weird. Eventually, the principal had to come out and say, well, that's it, Beverli, you're coming to the office. And I had to go and sit in the office. So every break, I wasn't allowed to go out with everyone else because the school was too afraid that they were going to either lynch me or tie me to the tree again. So the last few years of my schooling, I never went out because I had to go and appear in the principal's office. I was in trouble. So, yeah.
Isn't that a shame? It's so sad, actually, when you think about that. And for you guys, I did a show with Jamie J on Aquarius Rising Africa last week on actually bullying. But we did it more on sibling bullying and sibling rivalry. And this is a similar sort of thing. Stuff like this changes you forever. Your whole response to life becomes different.
It does.
And believe it or not, I mean, I was certainly Stockholm syndrome to my one sister because I had that. It's like my mom didn't know how to deal with me. So my sister took the reins because I was reacting to my environment all the time. And and of course, she ruled me with an iron fist, boy. So, and it's amazing that when you go into certain situations again, it's like your brain goes straight back into the 5-year-old mode and you react in certain ways exactly as you would as a 5-year-old. And that show explains so much about that. So I really want to say, all of us have had that on some level.
Yeah,
it just explains things. So yeah, it was amazing.
I'm going to comment about it because I know you went through it, but then that's what I went through. So yeah, we have a similar background.
Yeah, so bizarre.
So I must say the Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp, that whole energy, I've been looking at it now for a few days, and that energy was so obvious on some of them, like for instance, I had a look at the day that Reeva transitioned, and then I looked back at the date, which I just get my notes, and it was the Valentine's Day, February 2013. So it's 12 years, but that was a blood right ritual day. So it was very interesting to me because I thought, I wonder how many people actually realize that energy around where she was and what she was doing and how she was transitioning, that was a blood right day. And there were so many areas when I looked at him and I looked at her, and then I combined the energies and looked at the two together. So what I've done is I've got a number of images that I'm going to speak through. What I've also found very difficult was when I looked at Oscar Pistorius, particularly from his knees, and you'll see this in the image, but I wanted to explain this, is that down from the knees down, where he was the double amputee, that energy was disallowing him to have the resonance of Gaia, of being able to be attached to the earth. And that caused a lot of issues for him. And this is where the destabilization took place. So when you see the picture, you will notice that the bottom is, I've put in metal legs under the knees because there's no connection from the human body, from where we would go outside and stand on the beach or stand on the ground in woods or forest and allow that energy to filter up through your body and move up through all of your chakra points. He did not have the ability to do that. The only way that he could have done that is if he was lying down or if he sat with his bottom on the earth and allowed from the bottom of the chakra points for that energy to come up through his spine and spiral.
Wow.
That's the only place that he could do it. So what we take for granted, being able to go out, earth, ground, he couldn't do that.
Right. Super interesting. But before we actually go on to that, I want to just maybe give our viewers an overview. And I know Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp are very well-known personalities in this country. And I know it was a very well-known case across the world. But Oscar Pistorius, local South African wealthy boy, comes from a wealthy, privileged background. And born without, well, had to have his legs amputated pretty much at birth, right?
Wow.
And has learned from birth to use his prosthetic legs, and discovered along the way that he had this great gift for athletics, running. And so along the line, they then created these, what they call these, the blade. That's why he was named the Blade Runner. Both of his legs were created from this, I don't know, I can't remember what steel, but steel. And he was running against the normal athletes and beating them. Wow. So that's how he made that's how he got his reputation. And he was obviously a total hero in South African sports. I mean, Oscar Pistorius was, and still is. I mean, let's never forget the man, doesn't matter what happened. He was an absolute legend and still is a legend in terms of what he was able to achieve. I mean, he made history. I mean, I don't think anyone else. And he's also done a lot of good, you know. He was a great inspiration for a lot of the young kids. I'm actually going to put up, I brought a couple of pics here. This is him. He was a great inspiration for a lot of the young kids as well. I mean, I remember reading stories of this other little boy who was getting his legs, and Oscar was there, and, you know, did a lot of that sort of stuff as well. So here he is, obviously quite a sight, actually, when you saw this man run. I mean, quite a sight indeed. And then, of course, here are a couple of pictures of him with Reeva. That's his, well, the late Reeva Steenkamp, a model. She was a model as well from, actually, I think she's Cape Townian, but she was living in Port Elizabeth at the time. And also very much involved in charity work, working with young women, you know, doing a lot of projects, empowering young women and stuff like that. But what always fascinates me in these situations is that there's always men, wealthy men, and models. There seems to, I mean, if you just look at, let's just look at American politics at the moment with Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk, right? Also, these beauty queens and even Trump's wife. Oh gosh, what's her name?
Is it Ivana?
No,
No, that was the other one that fell down the stairs.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm eating blank. She's beautiful, but she's an ex-model, okay? And it's like there's and Trump is well known for having these beauty running, you know, owning or running these beauty competitions. Not just him. I mean, that's just the ones that spring up to my mind now. But there's always, and the sports personalities, you know, that look specifically in South Africa, a lot of them you'll find with Melania. Thank you, Lisa. Melania. Gosh, Melania also was a model, right? And a lot of these sports personalities in South Africa, you'll often see them with models or girls like that, you know. So I know they often go to these parties. I've been invited to some of those parties in my life, and I've never gone, but where there's celebrities and stuff like that. So I have no doubt there is some kind of a networking system
I'm
that
sure.
networks people together. Pretty much like the actors, I guess, and actresses in Hollywood as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if Reeva and Oscar were networked together. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I think that they were networked together, and they were linked together, and in a way sort of manufactured or pushed into the type of relationship. And it would have been one of those situations where like attracts like, and he was the right person for her at the time. But I do also think that when I looked at her overall energy, the energy kind of went to a point and then it stopped. That energy didn't continue. So there was always going to be an issue around how far could she go? How far was she able to be in control of what she wanted in her life? And I don't think that she was always in control, mainly because of the energies that were around her. And when you look at, which is another interesting fact, when you look at the new lady, Rita, and you look at Reeva, and you look at them side by side, and you look at the energies that they're very, very similar. So it's Rita Heiling. And
Who's Rita Heiling? Is that a new girlfriend of Oscar's?
Rita Heiling is a child of multi-million family. And when I looked at her and I looked at the Reeva energy, obviously all of her photographs now, when you look at it, you can see it's flat. There's no energy there. There's no sparkle. There's no nothing. She's obviously transitioned and she's gone across. But when you look at them, you can say, well, actually, was it meant to be Reeva that he was meant to be with, or was it meant to be this Rita person? So it's a very different type of energy. But the look of the husk, so the husk that we're in, the human body that we're in, the husk's look and feel is exactly the same. And what I found quite interesting is that Reeva's mother went to Rita Heiling and said, be aware, he is still a very angry young man. He still has that angry push in him. He has still not dealt with it. He's not going for his anger management classes or situations that he needs to be in. He's not doing that. He is still a danger to women. And it was just cast aside. So I found that very interesting, that the mother was outright, absolutely, this is my warning. I'm warning you straight up. We always knew that he was a cannon waiting to explode.
He definitely, I mean, obviously, also, just for those who don't know, what happened was on Valentine's morning day in 2013, Oscar shot Reeva, and she was in the bathroom on the loo, and apparently what his story was that he thought it was an intruder, and he shot her through the door. And of course, that led to a ridiculous court case where a ridiculous initial sentence was judgment handed out, and then of course it had to be redone. The case not retried. Was it retried actually, or did they just pass another verdict?
I think there was a change in the verdict. I mean, he did only. Yeah. I think he's only done 9 years because he's out. He's out on. He's basically allowed to move around. But I think the biggest aspect with him is that he's not allowed to speak to the press at all in any way, shape, or form. Even if it is to promote his book, The Blade Runner, he can't even speak to them about that until 2029.
Isn't that ridiculous? Because you yourself have had that kind of restriction placed on you, and you know what secrets you've had to keep, right? Yes. And probably still do. So if he has that kind of indictment on him as well, he's keeping a lot of secrets.
Indeed.
And that's exactly the thing, because he comes from a powerful Afrikaans family. His father his father's family is very much involved in mining and engineering. And hey, mining, I'm sorry, anyone who's involved in mining, they got money.
Yep.
And
Lots
there's
of
things
it.
going on there, and there's contacts. That's a speculation, yes, but there's contacts. When you're involved in mining, you got contacts.
You do.
Let's just leave it right there. And of course,
But then you've got
well,
the mix and match with all the energies coming in from the two families, and obviously there's no love lost between those two families right now because of what happened. But I found it very interesting when I saw that he had this embargo placed against him. There's a media blackout on him. Media blackout. Everybody else can talk. Everybody else can do whatever they like, but he cannot. Oscar himself cannot say anything. He cannot go out and promote his book. He cannot promote what he's doing. If he's doing any sort of charity work or trainings or education, nothing. He has to stay completely still.
yeah, so he's obviously exactly there's stuff he's not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand that. I mean, if if the story is true and it was the way he said it was, he go to jail, came out. Why not sell your story now, right? Isn't that what most people do?
They
right?
do,
When they've
but
had
he
this,
can't.
but
No,
he's not allowed to. So we got to ask why. Why is he not allowed to sell his story? And as I said indictment. Sorry, it was an embargo. It's an embargo that's placed on. Yeah.
Media blackout.
Yeah, and exactly. So it's like as I said, how many secrets you had to keep. So what is Oscar having to keep? Why
Exactly.
is he not allowed to talk? That immediately is a big fat pop red flag right there.
Flag. It is indeed, yeah. And it's also, when you start looking at who he's involved with now, and how, when you look at, I was having a look at, he stays in Waterkloof in Pretoria, and I used to live in Waterkloof as well, so it's a really lovely area. But all of the houses are very behind gates, behind big walls. And he's staying with Arnold, who is, I think it's his uncle. But from that point of view, from that house, he does his community work. So he's still doing part of his community work in the Pretoria area. He's still doing what he needs to do to discharge what he has to do for the state. Very interesting. And that energy with the Arnold person, he's with Arnold because Arnold is his handler.
Right. I was about to say that to you.
Yeah.
You often see that, don't you?
Yeah.
Is that it's not necessarily the father that's the handler, but the uncle.
Yeah.
Often we see that.
So he's in there, in that lovely house, which becomes his golden bird cage in Waterkloof, in Pretoria. So that's where he is. I've felt that the side of him as well, he was diagnosed with this GAD, so generalized anxiety disorder. And that I think was in 2014. They confirmed it, but he had an entire history of decades of him outbursting, having the anxiety, the anger, and really bursting out. So whoever it is, we're not sure who it is, but somewhere up here, there's a level of control that's being placed over him so that he doesn't burst out again, because he has got that condition. He does have an issue with dealing with anger. He can't control his anger. So when I started looking at it, I thought, well, there are these threads that are coming in, Reeva Steenkamp's mum saying what she did, then his diagnosis, and then his uncle keeping him under the thumb, keeping
Do you want
him
me
there.
to put his picture up, the aura one, the energy one?
Yeah, and what's interesting is aura hasn't really changed for about 2 decades. So we'll go through this now in pieces, because I will say it's quite a spectacular aura. And when you look at it, you can see at the bottom, I was talking about the legs. So when you see the bottom, the legs are, I've created them as like steel legs because I couldn't get the blades because when I was trying to put it all together, I couldn't get the blades shown. So just understand that where the feet are and where the knees are, that is to show that it's prosthetic, or that is also the blades that are used, as well as no legs at all. So we'll start with the bottom because that's the most interesting one, is that the green energy explosion from the knees towards Gaia Earth as spiky, where his grounding connection is not happening through his feet because obviously he doesn't have feet. So in order for him to get that grounding, he would need to sit on the earth with his spine, with his bottom on the ground. So that is where you see that green spikiness, is that the earth is trying to come up to greet him, but he would have to go down to greet the earth in order to ground. And this is why a lot of his energy is feisty, angry, and up the top from his knees upwards, because he cannot ground himself. He cannot put that energy back into the earth. So then we also see that part of that grounding does not connect with anything else in his body. The arms and the hands, if you have a look at the arms and the hands, I've put them with this very bright orangey fuzzy light, which is a golden type of light. And that shows that those hands and arms and shoulders are extremely strong. So it is almost in a way that all of his energy that would have been in his legs as a sports person, in order to pull himself along and carry himself, those energies show that his arms are unusually extremely strong. And that's why they've got that unusual, strong, bright energy, because he's pulling on that energy, and he has done for all of his life, which I think is also quite an unusual one. Then you look at the upper torso, and upper torso has got this blue electrical energy that goes across his chest, which is also showing that the upper torso has had to be significantly developed because he's had to be strong in those areas. But then he's got this white, like almost like a hole within the heart chakra area, where he's got these explosive tendrils coming out. So that white area shows that there is a disconnect and a misappropriation of energetics in his heart chakra area, which is it's not the colors that it should be. It's completely different. Then we have a look at the energies around his neck, around the dark brown circular throat necklace. So if you have a look, I've created this throat necklace, which is his throat aura, and it shows that he has an area that is compressed and has been corrected around his neck. Now that tells us that because his throat chakra point is not allowing him to speak out, it's brown, it's dissolved, and as one of those particular energies, that means that he's not able to speak his truth. And that, I think, is going to be with him for many, many years. I don't think that he's going to be able to come out and say what he needs to say. I think even the book that he's written, Blade Runner, I think even that has been managed, and they've managed the message. They've managed the message out in the media. They've managed what he's been allowed to say. And he is, once again, his area around his throat has been closed off because they won't allow him to speak out at. So that's a key thing. If you can see that dark browny color where basically it's squashing the neck, it's squashing the chakra point in the neck, which allows free speech, that allows the spirit to move within you. None of that can happen. The outer areas of the aura, you'll see that there's this funny dark smoke with tendrils that go inward that connect to his stomach, which is obviously the solar plexus. But then we also have the energies that are going into his back of his neck and through the back area where the solar plexus is. So we can see that these tendrils denote that there are attachments, which is a very interesting aspect, because he was saying that when he woke up on the floor, and he only then realized what had happened. He didn't realize that necessarily that it was his actions that had caused this. And this is the key area, because you look at the orbs that are floating around the back, and you look at the difference of the colors, and you've got all of these dark orbs and some light orbs, but mainly the dark orbs. And this is bringing in and out of his toroidal field as well as his aura. It's bringing in and out all of the attachments that are moving in and out. So they are there, but then they also move out of his energy field. So I think that a lot of these, particularly the large balls that you see, these energy orbs and spheres that are in his aura, these are individuals that have come in and out of his aura and the way that he perceives things. So that would mean sometimes, particularly when he gets really angry, that's where the red fieriness is coming from, across the bottom of his upper legs and his bottom of his torso and the basal chakra moving up. There's these literally flames where he's got the connection to the orbs, which draws it in. And as we know, when there's attachments, they attach themselves to the solar plexus and to the back of the neck. So they grab on and they stay grabbed on. And this is all swirling around him at the time. So we've also got the arms and the hands that show the fuzzy purpleness in the middle, which does allow him to have like a cactus spikiness, which means that sometimes he becomes a spiky type of person. He starts pushing people away. He will not engage. He will cut people off. He will ghost people. You know, he will act corpse-like, because when that energy takes over, he just gets really annoyed and shuts down. All of this energy just completely shuts down. Then you also have part of the top of his head, which is a very unusual one. It shows a type of sea urchin. That's the best way I can describe it, in the light purple, which is the collection of energetics which moves around him, because part of that energetic at the top was that when there was the necessity for him to lose his walking and become a double amputee, that particular energy popped out of his head and then gave him a slightly different energy so that he could draw on that energy and utilize those gifts of running, the gifts of education, and the gifts of becoming an extremely good sports person. So as much as the bottom of the aura has no legs, the top of the aura around his head is compensating for what he doesn't have at the bottom of his aura. And then you've got all of the other swirlings that are happening around him. So you can see that some of that red moves up throughout him. Sometimes he's able to get it under control, but sometimes he's not able to control it. And that's when this heavy darkness and one of these big dark brown sticky balls, which carry an energy of an attachment of some sort, they can actually move into the aura and start connecting with him. And then he becomes a totally different person and he doesn't recognize himself. I would say when I've seen energies like this, sometimes that person is either disassociated or sometimes has multiple personality disorder. So I don't know whether that's being reviewed. I know his mental health was reviewed through Vescopis, and some of the key clinicians and psychiatrists, psychotherapists, etc., at Vescopis was looking at him to see, you know, what happens to him, what is the transition. So the 9 years that he has spent in the prison service, he definitely has gone through a lot of evaluation. I don't think, though, that he has dealt with and does know how to deal with the red that we see in the middle of his aura there. I don't think he knows how to deal with that correctly just yet. I think there is still that area where he can go off the rails, and he could very definitely be in a situation where it becomes dangerous for anyone that is around him. And I think that's why they've put this lock and key on him until 2029. I think that the Vescopis clinicians have got something to do with that and saying, well, it'll take us until 2029 to be able to get him to a point that he's sufficiently stable to move forward.
Wow. It's very interesting what you say. There are a couple of things,
Yeah.
we also know that, let's say, if somebody's born deaf or blind or something, their inner senses or unseen senses are often heightened, right? They overcompensate in other areas. So it's very interesting that obviously with his arms and shoulders, because what I saw is when he leopard crawls, and obviously he would have been leopard crawling most of his life, right? Like learning. So he would have had very strong arms and legs. And I believe that came into play the night that he actually killed her. I do believe that he was not on his legs that night. I do believe that. I mean, we're going to talk about that later. I know, but I think that for me is definitely how he got around that night very quickly, very, very, very quickly. I mean, it's like a flash, and that man's like crawling around that floor. Very interesting.
Yes. And that's where that huge energy is, that he was able to move fast, even though the lack of legs, and there wasn't really much that he could do about that, but he was able to move very fast. But what I found very interesting was his activities around the evening itself, is that these dark spheres that carry the dark energy of, more of the sort of the demon Luciferian type of energies that are constantly around him, swishing around him, waiting for an opportunity to take control. I think that based on the colors that I've seen and the fact that there's so many gaps and there's so many areas that are very weak, but there's other physical areas that are very strong, they were able to gain control and do what was necessary. And that's why when he woke up, he had absolutely no clue about what he did, because those large dark spheres had moved, if you can imagine them, they've moved across into alignment through the center of his body and taken control of the husk. So the body, the physical organic body, taken control of that. So for a period of time, I would say that there was a possession that took place, and they wanted to ensure that light and the life force was sucked into where they were. And that's where the Steenkamp issue came in. And it was during the time of the blood rites, so 14th of February in that year, 2013. That was all part of it, and I think when you see this energy, I can see that he has been carrying all of these energies around him for decades. This is a stable aura. This is something that has been in place for between 10 and 17 years, maybe more. It's there, it's happening, it's still there, it's happening. So we do see also, I'll draw your attention to some of the white lighter spheres, which you can see they're quite far back. And these are the souls and energies of children and little ones that have looked at this person and thought, well, this person can teach me X, Y, and Z. So there's a number of soul contracts. If you look at the top there's a couple of soul contracts with smaller ones and larger ones. And these are soul individuals that are part of the overall soul plan, but part of the soul family. And these are individuals that do want to come through to him in spite of what he was, moved towards or coerced to do, or under possession levels. They still want to choose him as a parent to come through and learn. So that is the only saving grace that he has at the moment, is that there are souls that have chosen him as a father. So that is something that we will see coming into his body in the future. The aura will change because once he accepts to become a father, then those energies that you see, the white spheres, they will come in and they will then utilize his husk, move through the husk and move into the womb portal of whomever the female person is that he chooses to father a child with.
How very interesting. And I would imagine, obviously there's so many layers to that as well, the souls that have chosen to have him. But I fully agree with what you said about how it happened that night, because I feel definitely that the way he explained it was absolutely how he experienced it.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. I saw him literally, he probably, more than likely, her going to the bathroom would have alerted him. And already, this guy, let's think about it this way. He grew up with guns. I mean, we know he was gun crazy, right? And let's never forget, guys, when you are living in South Africa, and you've been traumatized, and I want to point this out very strongly. You guys have only recently been alerted to the farm murders here.
Oh,
when
Lord.
you have experienced that kind of trauma in your life, it changes the way, it gives you a PTSD like you can't explain. That I will definitely say as well. So one of the things he was saying in court was that he had that reaction because of fear of already previous situations he'd been involved in, right? So I'm going to absolutely take that as a valid point as well. But I think, again, we know how these creatures of the night work.
Yes.
They will absolutely look at somebody's weak point. They scan that energy. They know exactly what the weak points are. And then they absolutely will go in there. I do believe there was some type of possession. I believe he heard something. He reacted through this possessed state, because the next thing I see, once he's shot, he like falls back and he's not on his blades. He is on, or whatever other prosthetics he might have had. He's on his stumps. There is nothing else there. So I'm going to back that point up as well. I see, and then he like falls back onto the right side. It's like he falls back onto the right side, and then he kind of comes to, and he sees, and then he realizes what he's done. That, I believe, is the truth. Maybe not exactly in the way that I've explained it, but I want to say that for me is what I saw. I do not believe that him and Reeva were having issues. Like any other couple, they might have had a fight or had a bit of a jealousy, whatever going on here and there. We have to know, unless, of course, the media kept that from us. Now, again, we're hearing about Pistorius. Now, that might be another rabbit hole to go through, Beverli, because the media, I mean, we know that they would have scoured those messages between them, because the state was saying that they'd had an argument and that he was jealous. And I think that was kind of like the narrative, that was the only reason they could think that he would have killed her. That's the thing. There was no motive. There was really no motive.
Yeah.
And if we think about it now, think about the court case. Perhaps this is why the judge initially let him off. It was an African woman judge. It was the first judge, I think female judge, and it was such a public case. She let him off. She believed his story. Gosh, Beverli, I didn't consider that until now. I'm having this conversation. And then there were the other guys that overrode his story.
Yeah. But it was, the colors that are there, and the way that the dark energy around the outside, the very large dark energy on the outside, that is similar when I was looking at true crime with a twist, and we were looking at serial killers, but then also those that did what they call a crime of passion. They're not the same. The crime of
No.
passion energy is different. A crime of passion is in a split second, those people's, like the scissor murderess who stabbed. And also, do you remember there was a lady that cut off her husband's willy? And there was, all of those were crimes of passion. And the
Yeah.
energy of that, totally different, totally
Right.
different. So he's going to have almost zero memory of what happened. And even through deep hypnosis or trauma therapies and that, I don't see, with this aura, I do not see him being able to recall it, because actually the big spheres that you see are those demonic energies and outward personalities that are outside of him. He cannot have the memories of an entity that is not himself. He can only remember what he remembers for
Right.
himself. Like
Exactly.
I can't remember what you did because you're a different person. It's the same thing with him. He can't take the spheres that are there and say, well, actually, let me just try to work out what your memories are, because you can't do it. You just can't do it.
Wow. Makes perfect sense now. It really, really, really does. I believe he did it, absolutely, but I do believe there was some kind of
Force.
occultic
Yeah.
force that was involved for sure. And if you look at the, as you say, the timing of it as well, it
Yeah, blood
makes
right.
yeah.
Mm.
Cool. Do you want to have a look at Reeva's?
Let's have a look at Reeva's. So this
Is
was
this
this was the start one. So this is the first one. This is the first one when I looked at her when she was well, she was happy, she was, moving herself forward, she was pushing herself with her light towards, the third eye, she was sending everything out. This is her when she was at the top of her game, and when she was really pushing everything out. You can see all her beautiful, beautiful energies. And when you look at how she was literally sparkling. She was sparkling, she was glittering, she was trying really hard to be the golden girl, to be the one that she was tipped to be the next person that does extremely well, both in London and also in America. So when you see these energies going out into the universe, on the one side, you've got all these 3 or 4 very lovely, beautiful, beautiful golden energies with these golden orbs. And then on the other side, you've got the silvery ones. And then at the bottom, you have the culmination of her soul and what she was trying to do. So you've got all of that was going for her. And that in itself already shows us that there is a danger, because there's too much light there. So the outer rim, if you look at the outer rim, there are these spiky white energies, which is food for demonics. It's food and very attractive to those that are in the darker fields or in the lesser realms, where they see and feel, because remember, they need to consume energy, they need to have feeding, and this is what they do. They will look for a person that has the strongest, brightest light, and that is what they will do. They will hang around the strongest, brightest light, and they will be psychic vampires, and they will suck off all that beautiful white light, the golden light, and they will literally try to destroy the individual. So this is what we see her right up until the 2013 period, when things had started to change. So the next frame is the one where we see a day or two before. This is her with the energies, and I'd seen her pushing out the energies and pushing out what she was needing to do. So this is literally about a few days before the transition. So you will see the next one is with the swirling. This is, I think, and this is something I think I'm going to say, Chanti, to everybody, is when your loved ones are starting to transition, this is the type of aura that they get with the toroidal field that becomes a very big, sparkly, round, almost like a donut, but not. And then within that beautiful energy, you get all the ancestors. So you can see when someone is starting to transition. So you've got the swirlies that are coming up all the way up through the top chakra point, getting ready to pull them out of their body. And then you have also in the heart chakra point where the explosion is of all the beautiful energy, because they're getting rid of all the additional energy. They don't need it anymore. So the transition is taking place. Her ancestors are there. Those that were there to collect her, they're all in that energy field. And she had changed sufficiently. And I'd like to draw your attention to the bottom of the picture. And you can see there, the bottom of the picture is that lovely pink, which is a dilution of the red basal energy. So the basal chakra being red, and you've got the bright light, and it's diluting with the white light where she's being pulled into the next dimension. And this had already started in the beginning of February. So part of the destiny, the soul path, and also the contract that she had with him was that she would transition and she would leave. And this is where we can see that energy moving very rapidly towards the date, which was the blood right date. And you'd have a look at the base there. We've got this very dark red, which looks like a dark red star. And this is the key. That matches his, where the blood right was the 14th of February 2013. If you look at where the stars were, how it was aligned, and where the land and his ancestors were calling for blood, as well as both of them had these different dark entities that were walking with them, taking their power, sucking their energy out of them, making them tired, making them irritable, making them angry, and in her case, making herself very tired and quite fitful about where she was going, what she was going to be doing, because already the transition had started with her. And this was the culmination, the final event, which was the one that sent her across into the astral and into the other dimensions. So at least we know she was surrounded by loved ones. She was surrounded by individuals that were there to help her. The ancestors had come for her. They already knew that she was going to transition up to at least the beginning of February. So individuals would have come to make sure that she got across successfully. And this is, if somebody is leaving us, this is the type of aura and energy that I see. This is what someone looks like when they're transitioning.
So fascinating, because definitely I got the strong sense that this was a contract between them.
Mm.
She was a sacrifice, and she knew that.
Mm.
It's like her soul knew that. And the word justice is very strong that comes through. And my intuition on that is telling me justice has not been served.
No,
There's
not yet.
There's more to come. There's more that's hidden. And I think, yeah, it's unfinished. There's definitely, and I find it interesting what you're saying about his ancestors calling for blood. Can you expand on that from what you're perceiving there?
Well, there is in the DNA lines, which is from the fathers, the paternal side, there is a lot of individuals that felt hard done by. There was a lot of individuals that wanted more for very little. And there are those as well that go back centuries. So if you look to see where the family comes from, there is a very strong heraldry that comes through with them. There's a warrior-like family as well that's very strong, that felt that they were hard done by and that they weren't listened to. And they wanted to make sure that they made some form of, not a scene, but they made like an example of one of their immediate bloodline, i.e. the young man that is part of their blood, what they call blood of my blood. So that person carries our DNA. And the ancestors have been watching this play out a great deal. And that is what the cause was, is this has to happen. This young lad has to go through this because we need to negate whatever the soul contracts were, whatever was still needing to be finished, had to be finished. And he is the one who's finishing it. What's interesting, though, is that ancestrally, which is quite difficult, one of the ancestors with those white orbs, one of the ancestors wants to come through and try again. So you'll find justice will only be done when there is a new soul that has come through, when the new bloods have come in and the ancestors have come through the portal of a womb for him, the Oscar Pistorius person. So when he has had this opportunity to have children, only then will justice be done. There's a huge vile cycle that is happening. So as much as we know that he did the murder, he's also in a way a victim of whatever these things are, the dark forces that have been working through him.
It would make a lot of sense to me, that as well, that and she would have been the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Obviously, because the blood right?
Yes.
Because she had the perfect juicy amount of energy that they were desiring. She was the perfect sacrifice. I mean, I'm trying to find another word.
Yeah, great energy, golden energy. When you see, how much energy she had, before she started to transition in the beginning of February, it was ideal. She was going to feed. She was basically a feeder. Her bodily energy, her spiritual energy, toroidal field, and everything that she was carrying with her was very bright, very light. She was pitched to be, one of the next very, very famous actors, actresses, and working in different countries, model, all of that. She was pitched to be that. And that was it. That's what they said. Right, this is the energy we want. They got their claws into him and they managed to pull all that energy out of her. So they've had a fantastic feed because they were feeding off her bright light and her energy.
What happens, in your opinion, once she's crossed over? Does that feeding frenzy end? But I mean, I'm sure that they can't be feeding off her anymore, but they would be feeding off the loosh of the family, of the pain of and the suffering that's caused for years to come.
Unfortunately, in my experience, over the last 50 years, I have noticed that particular individuals that are very bright, sometimes when they cross over, these entities will still follow them and they will attach themselves to the ancestral path and they will attach themselves to the individuals. And that is something that is extremely difficult because then you have to pull those away from the individual so that they can transition and move. Sometimes they do follow them, but certainly you'll find all of the individuals that were involved in this huge soul family, because whether they like it or not, the Steenkamp family and the Pistorius family, the two families are bound. They are bound as a soul family. They've got soul contracts. So all of the pain, the suffering, the anger, the upset You know, that is just an absolute feeding frenzy for the dark ones. That's what they're
Yeah.
doing.
So again, we're looking at how, I mean, if we're looking globally, what they do to create loosh,
Yes,
this is done on a more micro level.
it is.
Not that it's small. I'm just saying that this is how it would be done in these. I don't believe he's a bloodline. Who knows if Oscar Pistorius is related to some of the bloodline families? Who knows? It's very possible. I do know his parents, his family are wealthy Afrikaners involved in the mining industry. So that, as we said, would say something, although it's an allegation. I'm not saying it is so.
We're not sure.
I'm just speculating here.
Mm.
But it's very interesting how he was pushed into that the sporting world at such a young age as well, despite his lack of legs, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's so interesting for me now as I've been observing what happens in the system, in the cult, and how they literally can they can check timelines ahead of time as well.
Yes.
And it would seem to me that this could even have been part of that, where he would have been this protege, right? Where he could achieve this greatness. Wow.
But also
That being,
have a look at one thing. What we can also have a look at is this particular case grabbed all of the energy of the world.
yes,
You had
yes,
all these people. You were either in the camp of, oh, you know, he's a dirty bastard, this is what he's done, which is a particular energy, or, oh my goodness, no, he couldn't have done this, must have been something else, etc. So you get the pity party that's happening over there. And then you get those that are totally on the Reeva Steenkamp camp, and they're incensed and outraged. So we've got that energy. So when you start looking at all the different continents and you start looking at how people are reacting to the story and which camp they're in, that then moves up as an energy up into the atmosphere, and that then feeds. So when they created this event for the 14th of February 2013, all of those energies, when I see it, all of those, and it's a big ball of energy. And it definitely was internationally on all continents, on all fronts, irrespective of where that energy was lying. It was a feeding frenzy for those entities that utilize energy.
totally, totally. It was a demon party.
Yeah. A demon dance along all different ley lines across the whole of the world, because I don't think there's one continent really that if you say the Blade Runner Oscar Pistorius, everybody knows the tragedy around that case.
But you know what, it wasn't just a sportsman shooting his girlfriend. It was Oscar Pistorius, who was this wunderkind,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who had achieved way beyond what any human had been thought to be possible. And there he was at the pinnacle of his career. Hers as well. I mean, she's a rising little star then.
Mm.
And it's so fascinating. I would be very interested to look into the ancestral bloodlines, because this is a very deep karmic, this is a deep karmic situation.
Mm. When I was looking,
they were coming for her for a long time.
yeah,
I feel like lifetime after lifetime, they were coming for her. She had great things to do. I feel like, that was what they tried to stop on the timeline, was what they did stop on the future timeline. And it's like, I feel like, as I'm sitting here and the information that's coming through to me now, Reeva was destined for great things. She really was. And she had almost like a princess. Look at her, yeah. She almost had like a Princess Diana energy about her. Look at her. Look at her.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm goosebumps as I'm saying this. Look at her. And I feel like that's what her spread through the community would have been vast. But I also feel there's justice coming for her. So another incarnation coming through her family will for sure fulfill the path that she didn't fulfill. It actually wouldn't even surprise me if it's Reeva again.
Yeah. Because she was tipped, the energy that she had when I looked, because I was thinking, well, where in the world is there another South African, artist or musician or model or actress? And I then managed to pinpoint it that the young Charlize Theron was very similar in energy to Reeva.
Right.
They're very similar, and they were meant to go on that same trajectory, and that was stopped. But I do think when I looked at the Pistorius background and I looked at the ancestral line, that ancestral line has brought through lots of troubles. And I do think that they are somehow linked, even if it's through a bastardization of
Yes,
some level, to the 13 families.
there's not even a question that as we're talking, it's becoming clearer to me. It's like that pit, that black pit that they come from.
Yeah.
It's like the way I see it, it's like dark pit and just lots of knotting and concoctions going on there. And that is why they have to steal light from someone like her. It couldn't just be anyone, because Reeva had like a Diana energy about it. I cannot handle Charlize Theron, so I'm not even going to bring her into this equation. I'm going to say Reeva to me had more of like a Princess Diana. She would have won those hearts over. That's the thing. This girl was destined to win hearts over. And that's why they had to take her out spiritually.
It's true.
And it's like with him, I actually feel like he's, when I say a bit of an innocent, I don't even think that this guy knew he was being set up.
No, I don't think he did. I mean,
honestly,
he was stuck in his pain.
I think his biggest issue was, it's so true what you say, is that he couldn't connect with the feet. So he had to often, and I don't know if he did, but this would have worked better, is that he literally would have had to take off his blades and literally sit on the grass or the earth or have physical contact in that way, because I agree, he was not grounded. And obviously brought up in this family of fear. Now, if he's linked to the 13 bloodlines, let's assume he is for just a nanosecond. We understand what kind of trauma is linked to that, potentially, right? So if that's the case, he already had trauma. And of course, he's been pushed from a very young age to be this wunderkind. And like any survivor, we know that all sensitivity is taken away. Every bit of humanity is taken away. And especially if Uncle, whatever his name is now handling you.
Arnold.
Uncle Arnold. Yeah. I feel Oscar was he pulled the trigger for sure. His greatest sin was that he never dealt with his anger, because his reaction and his reactive energy is exactly what allowed them to use his body as a vessel.
A vessel.
To do that. Fucking hell. They've been coming for reasons for a long time.
They have, and that was very interesting, because it's the joining. It's like the blending of the two souls, and so they have completed, the two of them, Reeva and Oscar. They have completed their cycle. Their cycle is ended, but what has not ended is the fallout from the passing, the fallout from the event, the incident. Because the incident, if you look at it on the timeline, when you start doing the timeline work and you put in the work and you start looking at it, when you go into, which is what I had to do, is I had to go into 14th of February 2013 and go into that date. And what I saw was like, oh my goodness me, this is like these tendrils coming in, like tentacles coming in, and they really are cooking with gas and making lots of energy. And I just thought, my word, the land was calling for blood rights, and it got the blood rights.
Absolutely. And sure, I do feel like tension had been building between them for about 3 days. That's what I feel. They were not on a comfortable footing. They were edgy with each other. His temper was flaring. My right ear is so itchy. His temper was flaring. He was having more fights with her than usual. He was not as kind and as gentlemanly as what he usually was. She was starting to see the real version of him. And because of the timing and the timeline, and obviously the rising of the events, his energy must have been feeling it as well. He was being prepared to get angry so that this demonic entity could come into his body. His body had to be at the right resonance of lower frequencies so that this thing could enter. So they were arguing. They were arguing for a couple of days before that. And I do want to say that I actually think she was going to break up with him because of that.
I think you're probably right.
I do think they had that conversation that night, actually. Wow.
Yeah, it's probable. And when I had a look at the timeline as well, which I thought was very weird, because when I went into the timeline, I heard this very deep, and I thought, oh my God, that's one of them, because they have this deep resonance that is so low. The frequency is so low. When you hear it, you think, oh my goodness, there's one of them. So that was this growling energetic, and it just comes out of the mouth as this funny, and a lot of my demon hunters, when they're out working on a job and they're clearing it and they're doing the sacred fire and they're doing the prayers and they're doing the drums and everything, you can hear them. You can hear this, because they don't want to be removed. Obviously not. For them, that is their life, even though it's not really life, but they don't want to be removed. And this is when you get this growl, you get this energy that comes, that's both sticky, but also it's defiant. And that energy that he had with that red was just exactly the right frequency. It's like if you ever had a car, a manual car, that you can't change the gears. If the gearbox goes, and I've had a car like this, and they said to me, well, to drive it to the shop to get fixed, get the revs to a certain level, and then take the gear stick and move the gear stick. And as you get to that, put your clutch in and move the gear stick. And you won't believe it, but I managed to get that sodding car all the way to the shop, to the garage, to get it fixed, because I did exactly that. And it's the same thing. You get to the frequency, you can move the gear lever and you can get it into the frequency and either push them out or they can get in, which in his case, they got in because that frequency had been set.
But I think he was already trained. If you think about that, I mean, if he's part of these families, and we know, and again, I'm not absolutely speaking with authority. I'm talking about what we know and understand about how these things operate. So always be discerning with these conversations, guys, please, and research these people, even if they are not affecting your own life or your own country. This absolutely affected the world. Absolutely it did. And and Valentine's Day, the day of love, right? And this tragic love story came to an end. And I honestly believe that Reeva did want to leave. I feel that they had that conversation. She was scared of him. She was getting scared of him. She was seeing parts of him that she hadn't seen before, because they hadn't been dating for very long. Remember that. They'd only been dating for a few months. I think maybe 3 or 4 months before this happened. So he was starting to reveal, and I do believe, and that would have gotten him in the place of fear, rejection, abandonment, all of his old issues that had not been healed from childhood traumas would have played. That's exactly it. I just got the download. Thank you. That's what happened that night. That's what happened that night. For sure. I'm going to say, Beverli, and I'd love your take on this, that they were a young couple and they were pretty happy and had fun, definitely all nice. But as the events led up to that night, his energy started, and based on what you're saying, makes perfect sense. The way that it's been orchestrated, right? The timeline checking, everything, the perfect date, the perfect moon, the perfect event. And he had to get angry. So they would have therefore created things as well, hitting his core, deepest emotional wounds: abandonment, fear, abandonment, rejection, fear, being left, not having any legs. So, of course, we've got to understand these guys also mentally are going to way overcompensate their egos, right? When they don't have all the parts of their body. So it's a natural thing that their ego is going to be overcompensated. So, of course, he would have had a very much inflated ego that all these people are loving him despite this. He does so well. But yet, his beautiful girlfriend here is telling him she's scared of him because she told him she was scared of him. And he did not, that triggered him. He did not like that. He did not like that he had exposed himself and that she had literally told him, "You're scaring the shit out of me. Get the fuck away."
Exactly. And you've got, when you think about it, because when I was looking at the event itself, when you see the moon in the sky at the time, the moon
was some kind of a moon.
It was a waxing crescent phase. So, and that's when it's in the west and the sun dips below the horizon anyway after sunset. And that is the first phase after the new moon. It's after the new moon. And it was a Thursday. And when you look at how many rituals and aspects happen on a Thursday, it's significant. And the lunar calendar in that time was one where there wasn't much of a moon to be able to see. So the moonrise and the moon set, the distances for that was not in a particularly good space, because that waxing crescent phase only has a quarter of the illumination that's needed. So it's not like a beautiful full moon that you can go out and do a full moon walk and you can see perfectly well where you're going. This waxing crescent phase is only literally 25%, 1/4 level of illumination on that time. So everything, the visible lunar disk where you have it, was not giving the level of light that was needed. So we've already got the moon playing its part by bringing the darkness in. And everything, unfortunately, for this young couple, everything was stacked against them. Everything.
I honestly don't think, and you know what, I've got to say now after tonight, I think that Oscar was a casualty of war in this situation. Oscar's greatest sin was, yes, he loved guns. He was gun crazy. We know that. He was always hunting and doing stuff. I don't think that he intended to shoot anyone. He had not dealt with his ego and his fears around abandonment, rejection. And we know how these people in the system operate, right? They're going to build him in all this magnificent sportsmanship and the sponsorships and the women and the money and the models. And you don't ever have to worry about the fact that you don't have legs. But and remember, if you look at that picture as well, it's completely disconnected from the root chakra as well, right?
Yes, totally.
So
Totally.
exactly. So when in his deepest moments of vulnerability and fear would obviously come in relationships with women, right? And because it'd be the woman that would reject him, and he would always go back to thinking it's because he doesn't have legs. So that's a fear, right? That's completely embedded. So that's what he would have been responding to. So that was Oscar, and I do believe there was some kind of MK Ultra, just as a side note, that occurred with him as a kid. So I'm just going to leave it there because that would then have opened the doorways for that tragedy to happen that night. I do not for a minute believe Oscar pre-planned this. I believe they had an argument. I believe the days moving on to the murder, they'd been arguing more and more. And because he had to get into the resonance where he could be the perfect vehicle for that monster. So situations would have been created that he got more and more angry. And as he gets more and more angry, obviously he shows his monstrous colors. So he gets angry, short-tempered, maybe a bit violent. Reeva is scared, tells him, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore because you're scaring me.
Yeah.
That's what happened that night. And then, sure, she slept there, but she was different. He knew she was different. He knew she'd withdrawn. She'd actually withdrawn, and he felt that. And he was scared. And that's why when he woke up in the middle of the night, that was what he reacted to.
The disorientation. Yeah, it would have been. And then, unfortunately, they had the land coming up, and then you had the moon coming down, and you had all of that energy moving forward. It was a recipe for disaster, and that's exactly what happened.
And it just shows you again how these people in the occult work. Michael, thank you so much. Appreciate your super sticker. Really do. Thank you.
Gratitude.
The first one that's gifted us. Yay.
The first one. Yay, that's gifted us on the very first. And I must say, I just saw a bee fly behind you. So you must go back and have a look as you were talking through. And I just saw this little black bee come flying. I thought, oh my goodness, you had a little bee. There it was.
I did actually hear it.
I saw it and I thought, how fantastic. We've got a bee center stage in the first show that we're doing. How awesome is that?
So, yeah, wow. That's quite something.
Different take, the spiritual forensics, looking at events that happen, timeline, reviewing the timeline, what is happening there, where is the moon in the sky, what does that bring to it as well. All of that played a part in this particular incident that took place.
Absolutely. And her light was just, her light was really she's a beautiful girl, you know. I can imagine it must have been a great loss for her family
Must have
and
been, yes.
everyone. Oh, Phoenix Blue, jeez. We're so lucky.
Oh,
Thank
there's a
you.
super sticker. I love the phoenix. Look at the phoenix. So cute.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate your generosity. So
And,
nice, really. Wow. Um, somebody's asking, Beverly, to you, just wondering if when you are getting these downloads, do you ever get freaked out by what you get and the evilness of it?
I don't get freaked out. I mean, I think the only time I really got freaked out was probably about 45 years ago. And I was working on a case in a factory where there had been a lot of incidents that had happened and it was actually an anodized steel factory. And I went to the factory, and unlike today where you have a group of demon hunters that go out, silly sausage that I ended up going out alone with the owner of the factory and one or two of the other staff. This was in South Africa. And I was actually then confronted by these creatures, and they in front of these other people picked me up bodily and threw me across the floor, and I moved towards one of the big vats, which is what they were doing. They were throwing people into the acid that they used to anodize the steel. And luckily, thankfully, the owner had put a mesh over it, and he'd put a wire frame around it with diamond mesh fencing. I hit the fencing with my back and ended up having a diamond mesh imprint on the back. And at the time, I thought to myself, you know what? This is not a good move to be trying to work this level by yourself. You need at least each person to hold each of the corners, north, south, west, east, up, down. So going forward, I always had 6 people, 5 people plus myself, holding the light, holding the areas, working with them to move them. Never did that again, but that was the only time that I became freaked out, because I ended up carrying the wounds and scars on my back for a very long time. But I did get it, but it wasn't a very pretty sight.
Well, we're glad you're fine, Bev. We're glad you're fine.
Thank you.
Wow, that is amazing. And definitely, I wanted to ask you about the moon. I got the word harvest moon. Would that be relevant at all?
I don't know whether there was a harvest moon at that time, because the harvest moon has a particular color, and
Right.
it could have been the new moon before that, which is that could have had a
Before the
harvest
harvest
moon.
moon.
It could have been, but the moon was already 4 days old, so it was only 25% of its brightness. It wasn't really,
Right.
you couldn't wish for a better time period to
But
undertake the darkness.
is it possible rituals were done on the harvest moon?
No, it is possible. Absolutely. It is
That's
possible.
that's
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I feel. Rituals were done on the
Yeah.
harvest moon.
Definitely.
Sure.
Well,
And
for
obviously
our
he's
first case that we've had a deep dive in and that we've looked at spiritual forensically, has actually been a very interesting one. And I'm so glad that you chose Oscar Pistorius as the case, because it's one of those that really took the world by storm. And it's one that we can look at and really get our teeth into it and see, well, what actually happened.
well, I think that's great. And I mean I wouldn't mind even looking a little bit further into this, even when when we're looking into the court case and stuff, and see why the court case was so highly publicized. Well, I mean, I think it not why. Well, interesting how the court case would have also have been such a
Highly
highly
charged.
publicized,
Yeah.
yeah, with so much charge going in. And then of course again what I was saying earlier on, the African judge, first female African judge at the time in the country
Oh, wow.
that was overseeing this case, and she let him off scot-free. She pretty much let him off. And I can't remember exactly what her legal term was, but he was pretty much set free. And everyone, the entire country was up in arms about that. And then they looked at the case again. Well, then there was a couple of guys. I don't think it was retried. I don't believe it was retried. I don't remember.
I don't
I don't
remember it
think
being
so.
retried. I
No,
don't know.
but
I don't think it was.
they gave it. They re-looked at the verdict, and then they gave him, I think, a 7 or a 9 year sentence. After that, I think they realized that the country was just not going to rest with Oscar Pistorius. That would have been bad, honestly, if he was set free. But there again, when we're looking at things now, I'm sure the judge probably figured something like that had happened. And if you look at the African people, they know these things happen.
Oh,
It's
yes.
only us whiteys that are so stupid. Right? Come on.
Not all of them.
Yeah. Well, most of them, gosh. Right. That we understand.
Oh, dear,
That we
that's so
don't
funny.
see that. So
Yeah.
probably that was the correct verdict. But then you see, that would make me think that the reason why he's not allowed to talk
Yeah.
or say anything in his book would have had something to do with why he was given the verdict of to go to jail. There was some deal attached to that. What I am pretty sure that's where the clandestineness comes in, is the retrying, not the retrying or the basically what do you call it? The verdict.
The verdict,
Re-looking at,
yeah, where they had. But
re-verdicting.
what I found it very interesting, and when you start looking at, the solar plexus, you've got all that lovely energy around the solar plexus, and standing behind the solar plexus, you've got your tummy, your stomach, the duodenum, and all of the intestines. But if you go back and have a look at the court case, when the picture, very graphic picture of the victim's body remains, etc., when that was shown in the court, immediately the solar plexus of Oscar Pistorius constricted with the energy, pushed the energy up, and the lad just vomited all over the court. And other people that felt that energy also were just reaching. So that is a direct energetic response, because that is being attached to the solar plexus, and the stomach is right behind that. And what happens is it constricts and it just pushes out whatever's the contents in the stomach is out. So I looked at that and I thought, okay. So here we go. The energy is so severe, and he looked at it, and that was it. He upchucked, and that was it, gone. And you find this does happen.
Absolutely. And that the shock, and that's why if he had done that in a conscious mind and deliberately, he would not have had that reaction in court. We have to see that. And I think the female judge was actually very wise. But there was some kind of shenanigans going on behind the scenes with our don't even talk. Yeah.
The main families.
Exactly.
The families that run South Africa. Yeah.
The families, and then the resentencing. Thank you, Aquana. The resentencing, and all of that was now done with. Wow. What an interesting reveal. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on our first rodeo, me and Beverli, with no doubt the beautiful spirit of Reeva Steenkamp,
yes,
who I have no doubt, in fact, has been partly present this evening. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beverli, thank you so much. I'm not sure if there's anything you would like to just maybe round up with.
I would like to round up by saying, that whenever I look at these cases, And whenever I'm looking at the spiritual side of those that have left us here in the 3D and those that are on the other side, please take care and know that I take care, that I speak to the ancestors, and I do it with the most respect, and I make sure that I give them gratitude and I give them peace, and I thank them for speaking with me or showing me things that we didn't know. So whatever the work is that I'm doing, please be aware that whatever I have been doing and however I've gone in and had a look, I've always made sure that I've closed the portals, closed the areas, I've cleansed, cleared, closed it. So nothing else can come out and nothing else can go in. But I'm always hugely respectful to those that in are part and parcel of the other realms, that are in between realms, that are moving through, and that I always make sure that at the end of it, I light my candles, I light my incense, and like at the moment, I can smell the fire outside is starting. We have a fire, we will do a fire, and we will say thanks to the Reeva energy, and we will say thanks for being part of what we're trying to explain, and we pray that justice is done eventually. We know it'll take time, but this is the sort of thing that as this energy worker and as a spiritual person, this is what I do, is I make sure that I cover my tracks, I close everything off, and I make peace with everything around. So if anyone was ever worried about how I was doing this, or that I'm disturbing those that are at rest, I make sure that all of that is at peace. And that's what I'll be doing with the fire now in a few minutes. We're going outside and I will be making my prayers, and I will put tobacco in the fire, and I will make sure that those prayers go up to spirit.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I've got a double blessing here tonight because two of my besties are in the chat.
Oh,
Chrissy and Marushka.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I don't often see my besties hanging around with me on these nights, but hey, we're all, it's a special night. Ching ching, everybody. Welcome to Solutions First Night, day, morning, whatever.
Yeah.
And we have what do we have today? Heart-shaped leopard spots.
Yeah, and mine is just
Cheers,
leaves. So cheers, my dears, and cheers, Chanti. Good. This was a great idea. I thoroughly enjoyed doing the deep dive, and I'm sure we'll come up with another new one for next week. Cheers,
oh, we've got a few guys. And also I'd love if you guys have any
ideas
for shows for us. We've got quite a few. We're looking at this sort of stuff: criminal activity, cold cases, current cases. Beverli and I would love to, have a look at what's going on, like we're doing now.
Yeah, there was once the Claudia Lawrence case. The Claudia Lawrence case was one that came through. That some individuals have said, because it was quite a terrible case, absolute cold case. They never found anything. They never found her body. They never found any clues. They never found nothing. Just completely shut down. So, and that was in I think South Yorkshire in the UK, completely cold. The trail went cold, everything went cold. The police were threatened, and then they just backed off. So it's another one of those where you think, well, hang on a minute, wait to drop. What's actually going on there? So, yeah.
Wow. We're going to be looking as well at the Station Strangler.
Yes.
Beverli, that's a case you worked on.
Yes, I did.
We're looking at F.V. de Klerk and his wife, Marika.
Yep.
Is he still alive? Are we allowed to talk about him?
De Klerk, I don't know. No, I think De Klerk passed. He's on the other side now. I think he's.
No, but if he died, it would have been like in the last few months. That one I think is still alive, but I think we're allowed to talk about him because he's just about dead, so we can talk about him. He's not going to do anything to us. He's not going to do anything to us.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my word. I think he is still alive. I think he is still alive. Yeah, I think
he's definitely he's definitely paying for his karma now.
Yeah.
But you know what's so funny? Remember Pierre Botha, that was the president before FBA. You would know him, the real racist one.
Yes.
But he actually built a house here in the area that I live in,
Oh,
long
wow.
before, and right here in the town. Because of that, he built an airport here. So we are very lucky
That you got an
actually
airport.
that we have an airport here. Yes, but what's hilarious is after he died, and of course he was like the real Mr. Apartheid. 4 black dudes bought his house.
Well, that's justice for you.
I love it. Can you imagine they were having a party in PME's house? And I'm sure they're probably digging up a whole lot of things in there as well. Oh God, those poor people.
I'm sure they
Anyway,
are. Oh, my Lord.
yeah. Guys, so yeah, we will see you in next week, same time, same place. We will figure out exactly which one we're going to be working with. There's a couple, Menendez brothers as well.
Yes.
Menendez brothers, we're going to be looking at. That's a big favorite of mine. Why the Menendez? I mean, again, we also know they admitted to killing their parents, but so much behind the scenes.
Loads.
And that stuff needs to come out, yeah.
It does.
Okay, guys. God bless. Take it easy and be happy. Be cool. Be kind. But just be happy. Yeah, be happy.
Thank you, Chanti. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.